Today we're going to continue talking about integers. Remember, that means the set of positive and negative whole numbers. And we're going to look at those more in context and talk about also the meaning of zero in each situation. So, some examples. You are at the beach. You spend time making a big sandcastle. The highest point is a tower that is 20 inches tall. You dig a moat around the castle that is 7 inches deep. And I gave you a hint to draw and label a picture. So if I were going to draw this, we're at the beach. We're going to draw a castle. So we're drawing a castle. The highest point is a tower that is 20 inches tall. So here's my castle. I have a tower here, a tower here, tower here. There we go. So the highest point, this point right here, is at 20 inches. You dig a moat around the castle that is 7 inches deep. Okay, so we think about a moat, and our moat, remember a moat is like something that usually you think about it having water in it, having a drawbridge over it, something like that. So we've got a moat, let's see, that goes all around our castle. And so that moat is 7 inches deep. So right there is 7 inches. And technically, if you think about it, that's really 7 inches below sea level. So this right here is sea level, or really that's the sand level. Maybe sand level is probably a better way to say that. So we would say that this distance from here to here is 7 inches because it's 7 inches deep. And the distance from here to here is 20 inches because the tower is 20 inches tall. So now, what is the difference between the top of the tower and the bottom of the moat? So that distance is actually going to be from the top of the tower here to here, the bottom of the moat. Well, if you notice, that distance is 20 inches and another 7 inches. So that distance is going to be 20 plus 7, which is 27 inches. Then you decide that you want to build a wall, it should say wall, at the base of the castle. The wall is going to be 6 inches tall. What is the difference between the top of the wall and the tower? So we're going to build a wall right here. Let's say we're going to build it right here. And this wall is 6 inches tall. So we want to know the difference between the top of the wall and the top of the tower. Well, our tower is at 20 inches. And our wall is here at 6 inches. So we have to drop from 20 inches down to 6 inches. So that distance is going to be 20 minus the 6 inches because we don't go all the way to the sand. So 20 minus 6 is 14 inches. What is the difference between the top of the wall and the bottom of the moat? Now, I want to point something out to you. This distance right here is 7 inches, but if we were actually going to label an integer right here, this would be at -7 because notice it's 7 below the sand level, and we measured our tower above the sand level. So the only way that this distance could be 20 inches is if we had this as 0. And notice then that would make our moat, the bottom of our moat, at -7. So now, what is the difference between the top of the wall and the bottom of the moat? Well, the bottom of the moat, as we said, is here. And we know that this distance is 6 inches. And we know that this distance is 7 inches. So the total distance from here to here has to be 6 plus 7. So 6 inches plus 7 inches equals 13 inches. Now, big question. What would 0 represent in this question? So think about what we marked as 0 here. What we marked as 0 is where we started building the castle. So that's going to be the sand level. And it's always important to pay attention to what 0 is in any given situation, because 0 isn't necessarily always really actually a 0. Like this 0 doesn't have to be at sea level, which we would consider 0 for elevation, but it is at sand level. So basically, the 0 always is going to represent the starting point from where you counted. So we started counting or building at sand level, and then we built up 20 inches to make our tower. We built down 7 inches to make our moat. So it's always important to think about what 0 means in any given situation. And again, it's the starting point. So in this case, it's the sand level. Next one, you ride an elevator from your 4th floor hotel room down 3 floors to the pool, then up 7 floors to the arcade, and then down 2 floors to the hotel restaurant. What floor is the restaurant on? Now this one, it might actually be easier to draw a vertical number line because we're thinking about an elevator. Elevators go up and down, so that probably might make more sense. So we start where? We start on the 4th floor. So thinking about if this is 0, ground level or lobby level, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where we started. This is our hotel room. And then we go down 3 floors to the pool. So we go down 1, 2, 3. That means the pool must be on the 1st floor. Then we go up 7 floors to the arcade. So the arcade must be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Must be here at the 8th floor. And then down 2 floors to the hotel restaurant. So down 1, 2. So we are on the 6th floor restaurant. So what floor is it on? It is on the 6th floor. Now, if we wanted to ask what 0 was in this situation, 0 in this situation represents our ground floor or lobby level. Next question. A football team gains 6 yards on one play, loses 15 yards on the next play, and gains 1 on their 3rd play. So if we want to think about this, we're going to gain 6 yards is what we do to start with. So thinking about gaining 6 yards, that means we have to start somewhere. So we think about starting at 0. We gain 6 yards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is where they started. They gained 6 yards. And then they lose 15 yards. Uh-oh. So if we're going to lose 15 yards, they're going to have to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. They're going to be all the way back here. So we have to count that. Let's see. All right, so when we count that back, we're going to be at, if this is 0, we're going to be at -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9. So we're going to be at -9. So that's a loss of 15 yards. And then they gain 1 on their 3rd play. So we're going to gain 1. That means we have to go up 1. Oops. Just 1. Let's see. Just 1 yard. So that's basically going up 1 or gaining 1 yard. So what integer describes their overall gain or loss? Well, they ended up at right here, which would be at -8. So -8 yards. And that would also mean a loss of 8 yards overall. What would 0 represent in this situation? So think about what that represented. We started at 0. then gained 6, lost 15, and gained 1. So what does 0 represent? It represents where they started. Which basically means in football terms, the original line of scrimmage. All right. Let's look a little further. The temperature in Anchorage, that should just say in, not one, in Anchorage, Alaska was negative 30 degrees, and the temperature in Juneau, Alaska is negative 40 degrees. Which city is colder? So let's think about this for just a minute. Thinking about temperatures again, I think a thermometer makes a lot more sense going up and down a vertical number line as opposed to a horizontal number line. So we've got temperatures that are pretty negative. So I'm going to have my 0 up here. And I'm actually going to count by tens because I think that's going to make it easier since we're talking about such low temperatures. So the temperature in Anchorage, Alaska was negative 30 degrees. So let's make this negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40. So Anchorage was negative 30 degrees. So we're going to label that. And the temperature in Juneau is negative 40 degrees. Which city is colder? Well, we should be able to see by looking at our thermometer that Juneau has the lower temperature. What is the difference in temperatures of the two cities? So the distance from negative 30 to negative 40 is 10 degrees. There had to be a 10-degree drop. So 10 degrees. Notice we don't need to say it's 10 degree. We don't need to say it's positive 10 or it's negative 10. It's not really asking us that. It's just saying how far apart are they. So this is sort of goes along with that idea of absolute value. We don't need to give it a negative or a positive. We just want to know the distance between them. So whether we count it up or we count it down, either way, it's 10 degrees. Question C. The temperature in Fairbanks was 5 degrees warmer than Anchorage. What was that temperature? So that means from Anchorage, we have to go up 5 degrees. Well, if we go up 5 degrees, that's going to put us 5 degrees closer to negative 20. So that means we're going to be at negative 25 degrees. The temperature in Tok was 10 degrees colder than Juneau. What was that temperature? Well, I know it's not a temperature I want to be at, but if we look, that means we have to go down 10 degrees even from Juneau. So we're going to go all the way down here to negative 50 to get the temperature in Tok. So the temperature in Tok, Alaska would have been negative 50 degrees. Now, a little bit of reasoning about absolute value. If negative 3 is less than negative 3 and 5/10 rather is less than negative 3, which it is, because think about it, on a number line, if this is 0, we have to count back negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Negative 3 and 5/10 has to be between negative 3 and negative 4. So negative 3 and 5/10 is less than negative 3 because it's lower on the number line. Then why is the absolute value of negative 3 and 5/10 greater than the absolute value of negative 3? Well, absolute value of 3 and 5/10 of negative 3 and 5/10 is 3 and 5/10 because it's 3 and 5/10 units away from 0. And the absolute value of negative 3 is 3 because the distance from negative 3 to 0 is 3 units. So when we think about this, the reasoning is because basically negative 3 is closer to 0. So its absolute value is lower. Another way to say that is that negative 3 and 5/10 is farther away from 0. Therefore, its absolute value, therefore, its negative 3 and 5/10 is further away from 0 than negative 3. Therefore, its absolute value is greater because it's further away. Couple more questions here. Describe each as true or false. And if it's false, explain why it is incorrect. The farther a number is from 0, the lower the value. So let's think about that a minute. Here's 0. We think here's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Well, it does look like as we get further away from 0, we're going lower. And you might even be able to see this better on a vertical number line. As I get further from 0, I'm getting lower. So at first glance, this might seem like a true statement, but think about it. Numbers can also go up from 0. So am I necessarily getting smaller as I'm getting away from 0? Well, no, it depends which direction I'm going. So that one would be a false statement. And the reason it would be false is because positive numbers, it would be true for negative numbers. The further a negative number is from 0, the lower the value. But the further a positive number is from 0, the greater its value. So in that case, it would depend on whether it's a positive or negative number. Now, our second point says, the farther a number is from 0, the greater the absolute value of the number. That is a true statement. Because remember what absolute value measures. Absolute value measures distance away from 0. So the farther a number is from 0, of course, the greater its absolute value is going to be because it's going to be further from 0. And that's what absolute value measures. Next, the record low temperature in January was negative 3 degrees. In February, it was 6 degrees. What is the difference in temperatures? And I ask you to explain how you know, either in words or pictures. A lot of times with integers, pictures, number lines make them easier to understand. We're talking about temperature, and I think often that's easier to understand on a vertical number line because we think about temperatures, thermometers going up and down. So the record low temperature in January was negative 3 degrees. So that means we have to be 3 below 0. So negative 3 degrees in January. In February, it was 6 degrees. So February, it was 6 degrees. So from 0, we have to count up 6 degrees. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 degrees above 0 in February. What is the difference in temperatures? Well, the difference in temperatures, notice to go from 6 to 0 is 6 units or 6 degrees, and from 0 to negative 3 is another 3 degrees. So the difference is 9 degrees. So there is a 9-degree difference in the temperatures from negative 3 to positive 6. And I could count that up if I wanted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And even if I counted that down, I would still get the same answer. From 6 to 3, negative 3 would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Either way I count it, it's 9 degrees. So we don't call it a positive 9 or a negative 9. That's just the distance between. Typically, when we explain the distance between things or the difference, when we're finding that, we typically are going to write it as a positive number because it's really absolute value. It's not asking us whether it's lower, which one's lower or higher. It's not asking that. It's just simply asking what is the distance between them. All right, next one. Mariah had $50 in her bank account. After she wrote a check to pay for gymnastics lessons, her balance was negative 25 degrees. How much did the gymnastics lessons cost? Well, she had $50 in her account. And then when she was done paying, her balance, that means how much money is in her account, was negative 25 degrees. So that means she had to have spent, or negative $25, I mean. She had to have spent all of this $50, so that would have brought her to 0, and then she had to spend another $25, which would have brought her to negative 25. So altogether, she spent 50 plus 25, which is $75. So the lessons cost $75. Now, kind of thinking through this again, what does 0 represent in this particular situation? 0 in this particular situation represents having no money in the bank. So when she got to negative 25, it meant she was in debt. When she was at positive 50, it meant she had $50 in the bank. If she had been at 0, that would have meant that she had no money in the bank, meaning she didn't owe the bank money and the bank did not owe her money either. So as you can see, using number lines, drawing pictures can really help a lot in understanding integers. It helps you to understand the meaning of 0. It helps you to understand how to find distances between things on the number line or in your pictures. So I encourage you strongly that when you're working with integers and in word problems, I encourage you to use a picture to help you.